good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night, wherever you are in the world, and welcome to another episode from the Grandstands. Today, we are looking at the last 2 rounds of Supercars actions that we've had over the course of 2 months, all the way down in Tasmania and all the way up at the top end in Darwin. On top of that as well, we are in our big month of sports in July. We're going to be talking about white clothes. We're going to be talking about white clothes and shorts. We're going to be talking about coloured clothes. We're going to be talking about coloured clothes with shorts. And other things as well, as we try to preview...
White jersey winners.
And white jersey winners. White jersey winners. Jerseys as well. There's so much to talk about this month because July, it's like a sports explosion has happened over in Europe. And it's going to mean many late nights for us, but many fun times to be had. So, thank you for joining us from the Grandstands. As always, I have with me Kiwi Chris. Chris, welcome back.
Hey, thank you, artist formerly known as Floody. How's it going, mate?
God. Oh, that's brilliant. How long have you been sitting on that one?
So about a month.
Oh, yeah, fair enough. Yes, thank you for coming back to us as we talk and we ramble on about sports. We took a month off for June because, of course, just some motor race happened. I don't know if you heard about it. 24 Hours of Le Mans. Yes, we will be doing a wrap-up of that, but, as always, we need to take a little bit of time to, detox after that event because it's so much. So we will be doing that hopefully before Monza if you're listening to this, which is very, very soon. Just quickly, 2 seconds. Oh, very good. Not good. Your thoughts?
Really intriguing.
Really intriguing?
I was a fan.
Me too. I thought it was a race befitting the centenary, which is, what you want. Let's leave Le Mans because that's in France and that's far away. Let's talk about Supercars, because there's been quite a bit that's gone on that we've missed, and we're going to breeze through it because we don't really want to talk about Supercars. We want to talk about everything else. Tasmania. What on earth happened in Tasmania?
They went full loco.
They went full loco. I mean, Tasmania is a bull ring, and Simmons Plains is a bull ring for a reason, but it's not very often you see Van Gisbergen getting taken out in a lap 1 incident.
Yeah, that was just reflective of his weekend. He had an absolute shocker down there, and that's the reason why he's languishing in the points somewhat now. Yeah,
and that's really sort of interesting. We haven't seen Van Gisbergen in this position for a very long time. It's been, 2016? And he was in 4th in the championship in 2016 at this point, and came through to win it. So it's not unheard of, but it was very surprising. It has been very surprising to me how difficult he's been finding qualifying, and then how difficult that has made his races, and then how difficult that has then made his championship.
I do wonder if the changes they've made to the car, taking out a lot of the driver adjustability, has actually worked against him. Because we know he's the sort of driver who would love to play with his levers 7 times a lap, and he can't do that anymore.
That's true, but we also know that Van Gisbergen can drive around conditions quite well. We'll talk a bit more about that in a sec. Let's leave him alone for a second. Let's talk briefly about his teammate. We said at the very beginning of the season after Newcastle, after they Red Bull lost their 1-2 because of the whatever, that it was something that Van Gisbergen could probably overcome, but probably not Brock Feeney. Now, Feeney is second in the championship behind Brodie Kostecki. 2 wins, a win in Tasmania, another win at Darwin. Is Feeney the real deal?
He's starting to prove me wrong, that's for sure. Was it, 4 months ago before the Bathurst 12-hour podcast where I said he hasn't yet proved himself?
It would be something along those lines, and mate, he's since then.
Yeah, I've got a big serve of humble pie coming my way very shortly.
Ooh, that sounds tasty. Do you mind if you can get me some as well?
You want the whipped cream on top?
Oh, mate, you know me, whipped cream, love it. Seriously though, Feeney has been probably the biggest surprise of the season thus far, if you ignore Erebus. And the follow-up question I had to that...
I was going to say, if you ignore Erebus, that's a pretty big thing you've got to ignore.
That's true. I was going to say, Erebus have been quite a surprise. We've seen glimpses of performance from Brodie Kostecki and Will Brown in the past, but we haven't seen this level of sustained performance. And this is the surprising thing to me. It has been sustained. Brodie Kostecki and Will Brown, every single race this season, one of them has been on the podium, except for when we got to Darwin. And we'll talk a bit more about that a little later on. But, that level of sustained pressure wins championships.
Wasn't it only a few years ago where was it, you have to remind me what year it was, where someone won the championship despite winning only 3 races in the season? all
Oh,
just because they keep racking up podiums.
I know it was a long time ago in like the 2006-2007 accumulated points era where like Rick Kelly won the championship with 1 race win versus Lowndes' 7, and Russell Ingall won the championship with 2 round wins versus Lowndes' 6 or something. So like it's not too far, but that was a long time ago. Different points setting there. Maybe Jamie Whincup in 2017.
Yeah, it sounds familiar, yeah, but it's how you win the championship. If it's just finishing races, even if you have a bad weekend, finishing top 5.
Yeah, or just finishing
Just
it all.
get to the finish and spank some points.
Exactly, and that's what Erebus were able to do for a lot of the season up until Darwin. Darwin, they had the opposite of that. Darwin, they had a friggin' shocker, which was a bit of a surprise to many, I think we can say. Anything else from Tasmania that you wanted to talk about briefly? Because we're kind of powering through this because we want to talk about everything else.
I feel like the main discussion points from Tassie will probably come up in Darwin anyway, so let's move on.
Yeah, just quickly, we probably would have talked more about Tasmania had we done a June edition of the podcast, but we didn't, so too bad. Darwin, first things first, Darwin did a great job with the event. I have not seen Hidden Valley look so good or be as packed as it was on the weekend. And I would say the drag racing as well was super duper cool, but the floundering around of trying to find things to talk about when they were doing recovery was less fun. But that's just me.
That's nitpicking, really. The whole weekend, even the Indigenous liveries, they've upped their game this year. Even the teams from last year who didn't really try, they've stepped up. They stepped up this year, and all 26 cars were absolutely perfect.
I think there was still 1 or 2 duds. I wasn't too impressed with Tickford's, specifically the Cam Waters offering again, or the tradie car. They were kind of, they were afterthoughts, I think. In my personal
They were less afterthoughty than last year.
That's true. That's very true. I do agree. The Indigenous liveries were really quite cool. I did quite like the fact that Shell V-Power actually did something properly for once, as opposed to half-assing it to appease their corporate sponsors.
Yes. Good old Shell Tickford.
Love it. Now, a few things that we saw at Darwin, which were, hot. The first one was Cameron Waters' pace. The second one was Cameron Waters literally on fire. What does a Ford driver need to do to win a goddamn race? Like, it's hilarious to me, the seemingly high level of incompetence that has been happening to Ford teams when they've been in good positions.
Yeah, especially this one, because even though they were trying to, Tim Edwards was trying to put the blame on, it's a crappy engine design. It's your fault. You should have made sure the connection was tight enough to make sure there wasn't this big fireball.
And even if
it's not that hard.
Yeah, and even if it is like the equivalent of the 20-cent part on the $1 million machine, you still got to make sure that 20-cent part is doing its job. So, just tell Toyota that in 2016. Anyway, quite scary. Glad that Waters got out. Glad that the fire got put out quickly. Less glad about the marshal who handed over a fire extinguisher and then whipped his phone out. Not exactly a fan of that.
Well, I'm not exactly a fan of that at all. That's immediately blacklisting, shouldn't it be?
I think so, yes. There is a pretty strict Motorsport Australia social media policy, and they really don't like you on camera using your phone to take pictures. They don't like you being on camera using your phone at all. So I
wouldn't have thought using your phone trackside at a hot track or even a lukewarm track is a good idea, period.
Especially over the wall. Like, I'll admit, I have taken video footage while on post but not on duty, if that makes sense. So not
having to sit down.
Yeah, not actively on flags during a race session, but I have during an exhibition session or while I've been off duty taken some cameras or taken some photos, or I've lent my phone up against the post to record the first 15 seconds of the cars all going through. Like, I will admit that plenty of marshals do it. And that's part of the privilege of being the marshal. Like, you don't go sharing that because that's not, like, don't do that. but also don't jump onto a hot track, hand over an extinguisher, and then whip your phone out. Like, my gosh. That's not good optics.
Look, they're a different breed up in Darwin.
Yeah, okay, fair. Following on from that, though, we'll talk more about Ford stuff a bit later. What it did lead to, though, was the first win for Team 18, Charlie Swercott's Team 18, and a huge gap in wins between Mark Winterbottom's last win and this one. But still, what a great story to have Mark Winterbottom take another victory and do it for Team 18. Like, that's wonderful.
And finally.
Yeah, right?
Finally for Charlie and his boys, who are one of the hardest working small teams you're going to get in the paddock.
Hard working because it seems like half their cars are crashed every second event. Oh, sorry, Charlie.
Yeah.
But in honesty, though, they've always...
He's one of the good guys.
Absolutely, 100%. To buy into a team and to build it up over the course of the years that he has done, to finally get rewarded with a good result where he's been strong at Darwin. Like, Charlie Swercott cars, Team 18 cars have been strong at Darwin for quite a number of years in a row. So to see them take a victory was really, really, really cool. Some will say that they only got the victory because Waters' car was on fire. What do you say to that?
Well, you've got to be in it to win it. He was still going to finish second no matter what.
Which would have been the first podium for the team as well. Would it have been? Either way. So, very, very cool. Awesome to see Team 18 on the top left of the podium. Now we get to Sunday, and we once again see Brock Feeney taking the ascendancy in that one. Really, really cool race. Erebus have a mare, first one of the season. Not any concern with Erebus over their nightmare on Sunday?
It happens. You're not Triple Eight. You're going to have a nightmare around every now and then.
And
how you respond.
Yeah, exactly. And it's about limiting the damage as well. And like the fact that Brody managed to get to the finish is probably a good sign. Even though they didn't get the points results that they wanted from that, they still got points. But the follow-on is that we had another first-time winner on the second race on Sunday, Jack LeBrock, winning for Matt Stone Racing.
Absolutely did not see that coming.
Really?
I mean, if you even asked me who I thought would win the race this year,
so
wouldn't have been on my list.
So yeah, just which part of it do you find surprising? The Jack LeBrock winning or the Matt Stone Racing winning?
Both, I guess.
Both?
Matt Stone less so because they've been improving quite a bit this year. But I just didn't think it was quite their time yet. I was wrong again.
Yeah, I mean, and very happy to be wrong. LeBrock has shown some good qualifying performances. It was the first pole for the team as well, so that's how they got the track position. But LeBrock has been on qualifying the front row of the grid before. He did it in, I want to say Tasmania, and I think it was last year when he got crashed out in the race in the morning of that day, and they basically had to rebuild the entire car just to start the race, and they started on second of the grid and fell down the order because the car was still bent. But he has got qualifying chops, and sure, he has taken a race win in the tyre limited formula of the Sydney Suplex earlier in, I think, in the COVID years. But, he still has shown talent, Jack LeBrock, and it's good that it's finally come to fruition. And, I have a soft spot for Matt Stone Racing. I was a Stone Brothers fan growing up, so to me, this was very special.
Yeah. And I'm the same, being Kiwis.
That's true. God, why do I always end up supporting Kiwis? Oh, I hate that.
But no, good on them. I guess he was more likely to win of the two drivers they've got.
That's true. But I mean, your other driver is a debutant, so
this is very true. There's no slight on him.
No, that's not. So hot times in Darwin. What did we think of the Darwin event?
I think it was not too bad at all. Actually, it was just the afters that really sold it for me. But the event itself was great.
So let's talk about the afters. What are you talking about when you talk about the afters?
The afters of four teams going parody, 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 screaming that this is completely wrong, we need to fix this, stating that they've actually, coming out in the media and making it incredibly public that there's something here that needs to be addressed. We've triggered an automatic review now, ahead of Supercars, who have also handled it pretty poorly, I think.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
It's just been a mess, and it didn't need to play out like this. all that had to happen was on Monday, Supercars came up with a statement saying, we're aware of these potential issues, we're currently looking into it, this has been triggered, this is what we're doing. And that would have ended 95% of the discussion.
Yeah, but it's not the first, or I mean, it's not the first time this season. This entire season has been plagued by the Ford teams crying parity. And, you know, while they're, I don't want to mince these words here, while there is a not insignificant performance difference between the two cars, that much has been made clear because they've pointed to race stints, Ford teams losing rear tyres. They pointed to qualifying, how a lot of the Camaros are in the top 10. They pointed to race results wherein a lot of the Camaros have been in the top 10. And also non-traditional teams who are driving Camaros are winning, except, while for non-traditional Ford teams, or even the good Ford teams, have just been absolutely nowhere. So you can say, I think after 5 rounds, we can kind of say, okay, there might be a difference. But still, the difference between the two platforms has been so fine that they are talking about, like, minuscule adjustments between the two platforms in order to make these changes. And I know that this sport is a sport defined by those minuscule adjustments. But, like, I find it difficult to placate, is that the right word? I find it difficult to agree with the amount of stress and angst and anger that has been happening over this parity debate when it has been something wherein half the time Ford is just shooting itself in the foot as well. It's just been a mess.
There's two things there. One, Ford drivers, stop crashing into each other. You're not helping your own cause.
Oh my God, right?
Proving that you get...
Like, 100%. Like, let's go back to Tasmania quickly. Why on earth did the two Shell V-Power cars crash into Cam Waters while he was on a hot lap in qualifying? Like, are you dumb? Like, what on earth is going on in those organisations where they can't organise their qualifying runs to not trip over each other when they're all trying to fight this argument that their cars are not an adequate platform? When no one can bloody tell because you're crashing into each other all the goddamn...
Yeah. As hard as it go for Ludo to go, Anton, hot lap behind you, get out of the way.
Okay, calm down. It's okay. So that's the first part. But, it just seems that every time a Ford driver gets into a good position, something stupid happens, like, a fireball. Mm-hmm. Sorry, and then the second part is...
Cam Waters is showing the Ford is actually not too bad. It helps that, I had this thought that maybe just the Holden drivers are just better collectively at the moment.
Holden, what's that?
Chevrolet.
It could be like that way. It's interesting to me that, like, besides Erebus and Triple Eight, there hasn't been a lot of consistency with who's been up the front, and it doesn't matter whether it's been Ford or Holden. Look what you made me do. Ford or Chevrolet in that discussion. Like, we've seen Andre Heimgartner take a bunch of podiums. Team 18 has taken a win. MSR has taken a win. Erebus have been consistent. Triple Eight have been consistent. But, like, also... the Nulon cars, formerly Team Sydney, Team Premier, they've been in the top 10. Tim Slade and James Golding have been in the top 10 in more than one occasion. It's like, it's no surprise to me that everyone's still trying to find a handle on this platform, which has been jumbling up the results, which is a good thing. It's just a surprise to me that when none of the 4 teams can string together a race. Like, Cameron Waters has been great in qualifying, but he hasn't been able to string together a race. And I'm not sure if it's a car thing or a personnel thing. But then, like, on the other hand, the bleating Ford teams can't even string together a qualifying lap. Like, I don't know. It's like, I find it very difficult to believe that it's all the car.
Yeah, I'm the same. We'll see what happens at Townsville this weekend. Late breaking news has just come out, so do we want to address that?
Sure, let's address this late breaking news.
But yeah, there's actually been an adjustment made to the Fords effective from this weekend. As you mentioned, they were all talking about rear tyre life. Essentially, there's just going to be a minor difference in rear downforce.
Yeah.
And it's basically going to brake a little bit better. So they're just basically adjusting the rear wing slightly and increasing the boot spoiler.
Yeah, so for the particulars of the press release, the recommended changes involve modifying the position, span, and angle of the rear wing, and increasing the side of the boot spoiler on the Ford Mustang. So, I mean, that could be a significant change, or that could be a not all that significant change. But it would be hilarious to me, and I grew up watching Fords, Marcus Ambrose and Triple Eight back in the day, Stone Brothers Racing and Triple Eight. They were my two teams. I wanted Fords to win. It would be hilarious to me is that they got these changes and their cars were even shitter. Like, that would just tickle me in such a way. Because, like, it's just... Anyway. Like, okay, I want to pivot from this discussion. You and I watch a lot of sports cars. Our audience watches a lot of sports cars. We've had discussions about balanced performance across the entirety of our run as a podcast. At the end of the day, it is up to the teams and the manufacturers to build a car that is good enough to be balanced in the series.
Exactly.
Parity in this context doesn't apply to making the cars good. It applies to making the cars even. If this is the thing that really sort of struck me, it's not a balanced performance system wherein they have to, modify all these different things to get them on the right track. It was the responsibility of the homologation teams to put forward a product that was appropriate. And, if, like, it's hard to say without Supercars handing over all their data and going through it with a fine-tooth comb and whatever, but, like, if there wasn't any change, like if there wasn't any issues in what the aero was signed off between the two homologation teams and what the engine parity was signed off between the two homologation teams, if it's just a setup issue, then that's not parity, is it?
No, that's just trying to BOP teams, and that's not what this is about.
Yeah, so Supercars is
it's like
technical parity, the technical parity sort of sport.
Yeah, if I can draw a crappy analogy, it'd be like trying to BOP Lawrence Van to Sully Ulick.
I mean, hey, you look pretty damn fast for a bronze driver. You'd probably be better off saying, like, trying to BOP Lawrence Van Toor to Ben Keating. That'd be a fairer comparison.
That'd be fair. I'd hear that, actually.
But yeah, so, like, it's just... This discussion's gone on far too long.
Yes. Hopefully Townsville puts an end to it.
So let's talk Townsville. Yeah, I mean, it won't. Let's talk Townsville. We return to the street hybrid track. This is something we haven't actually seen since... Well, I mean, Newcastle's just an out-and-out street circuit. This is a proper, like, street hybrid track now. This is something with much more of a built-in circuit overlaid with the streets of Townsville. We haven't seen one of these so far yet this season. I mean, I guess you could again say Albert Park, but no one actually thinks Albert Park's a street circuit.
No, Albert Park is a street circuit with streets that are conveniently laid out.
Exactly. It's like the streets were designed to have an F1 race on them. Let's be real.
Basically.
Now, what do we think the form guide is heading into Townsville? So we've seen Camaros be strong, we've seen MSR, a Team 18 take a win, we've seen Brock Feeney be up there, Erebus have just had a nightmare, the four teams are getting an adjustment, Andre Heimgartner's been in the mix. How does this shake out for Townsville?
Well, traditionally, Triple Eight's been pretty good up at Townsville. I do think it's going to be an Erebus Triple Eight, depending on these adjustments, how well the four teams fare. And also how jet-lagged Gizzy is.
So do we want to talk a bit more about Van Gisbergen then? Because
he's just kind of won another discipline.
I know, right? How dumb is that? I do want to quickly say, he has been the most, like, of the recent races at Townsville, he's been the one that's been, the king of Townsville, as dreadful as that is. Sorry, Shane. Sorry to indict that on you.
Is anyone going to be the king of Townsville?
But, like, he's been the one that's really made Townsville a place to get 300 points every single time. He's been a little off the boil in terms of supercars, but as you just said, he went to NASCAR, a series that he's never been a part of, in cars that he's never raced, on a track that didn't exist, and then he's just gone and won the bloody race. What?
After coming from 18th halfway through the race.
Oh my gosh. So, like, if you have no context for this, NASCAR, in the first time in their 75 years of existing, did a street race. The first time they've ever done that. They did it up and down the streets of Chicago. There is a team which is called
The weekend, yeah, Trackhouse.
Team Trackhouse. Sorry, yeah. They have, I think, 2 cars in the main field and then 1 guest car where they try and like bring people in to like do guest appearances. I think they had Kimi Räikkönen do 2 races.
Yeah, that's right. They have the number 199, which is Ross Chastain and Suarez.
Yep.
And yeah, they have the 91, which races usually street courses. So they had Kimi Räikkönen for a couple, Gizzy for this one,
and
yeah, the bloody turn around and won the thing.
Yeah, so straight away he was on the pace. Now this is the scary thing. He topped practice, and he'd basically done like a few laps of a short course roval, top practice, qualified third. The only reason he qualified third was because Chase Elliott, former series champion, was trying to sit in his wheel tracks and get a draft down some of the straights and crashed and brought out a red flag. So that's the only reason Gizzy qualified third. Then came out in the race and like I ended up watching the race because of all the hype. It was just a typical SVG race win, you know? He just conserved tyres in the first half, got onto the right strategy, which turned out to be the wrong strategy. You know, pitted late, put on good tyres, and came through the field.
Yeah, it was just typical SVG, and those last lap battle we had was it Justin Haley? I think it is.
I'll have to go get it in.
I think his name's Justin.
Yeah,
but yeah, it was actually a really good battle for a few corners as well. Till Gizzy went, nah, see ya.
It was pretty damn good. It really displayed the difference in the 2 categories when it comes to that type of racing, and like SVG was very quick to point that out. He said, like, this is the bread and butter of what I do in Australia. Like, street courses, I'm not scared of the walls, big V8s, this is what we do. He was apparently the only one who's ever used a clutch in a NASCAR for some reason. Everyone was talking about his foot. He said they had a foot fetish because they're watching his camera work, his heel and toe work. Yeah.
It was going, how do you do that?
Because like they've never had to brake and stop the rear tires from spinning up and rotate. So, yeah, but whatever. He just said, you know, these are all the things I'm already very good at, and like, you know, some of the NASCAR guys said he basically schooled them. What was it? I think it was Chase Elliott said he's going to go back to Australia and tell them all suck.
Yeah, and I think it was Kyle Busch. It was like, yeah, we've just been absolutely schooled.
Which is pretty crazy.
Kyle Busch saying that he's one of the best NASCAR drivers of all time.
It's pretty amazing. Like it was ridiculous. So he came from 18th, and he was pulling, you know, those sort of like late spontaneous fade moves that, you know, everyone in supercars does nowadays because Shane started popularizing it, and then just the NASCAR guys just didn't know what to do. Just let him go.
Well, they know now.
Yeah.
I don't think they'll be as kind to him next year.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. There might be a next year for Shane in NASCAR. Like, this has been something... I think this has been a little overblown, okay? I'm going to say that. But he did say, I've got 1 year left in supercars, and then this was awesome. I might come do this. WinCup's come out and said, like, we're going to have a chat about what the future is. Like, I don't think it's going to happen, but it might.
It probably won't, but I can guarantee you, Justin Marks who's the owner of Trackhouse Racing, will be like, Gizzy, you come back next year to Chicago, and maybe even the All-Star race.
Yeah, come back. Come to Watkins Glen. Come to Laguna Seca. Do all that stuff.
Yeah. The All-Star race is at Charlotte on the Roval, I think. Well, has been the Charlotte Roval. Or North Wilkesboro Speedway, which is a really tiny oval. I reckon Gizzy would do a ride like that as well.
It'd be pretty funny. He has said, I remember him saying when he was interviewed by Scott McLaughlin that he wasn't a huge fan of the ovals, the idea of it doing ovals. But even if he's just a road course specialist, like that's pretty rad.
He'd do IndyCar if he could fit.
Gosh. So pretty incredible for Gizzy to go do that. The first driver to win his first NASCAR race, his debut race in 60 years, which is pretty impressive. I think only the 7th non-American to win in NASCAR as well. So what can we say about Van Gisbergen that hasn't already been said?
I'm out of words. It's just, yeah, good on you, mate.
Yeah, pretty much.
I'm sure someone said that.
Yeah. I would love for NASCAR to release the onboard footage from the final 15 laps of the race, from the caution period through to the checkered flag, just to see Gizzy pass everyone.
I have to have a look at. They actually live stream from his car the whole race.
Really? Okay, I gotta find this.
Yeah, I'm not sure whether it's a rear facing camera or not, but yeah, he had a camera on him the whole race, and it's on YouTube.
Okay, I gotta find this, and you, dear listener, you should find this as well, because there are a few things better in life than watching a charged up Shane Van Gisbergen pass 17 cars on the way to a debut victory in NASCAR. Because,
yeah,
God, like, what a guy.
Unfortunately, the camera cuts out just as he finishes his second burnout.
Oh, what a shame. What a shame. On that note, do we think that has reawoken Van Gisbergen? Do you think that's going to get his supercars back on track? Especially coming back to Townsville?
It's going to be the confidence boost, that's for damn sure.
A track that is the sort of street hybrid and something that he's won at plenty before. Is this where we see Gizzy just charge everyone down?
I reckon it might be, It's probably sitting back on the plane on the way back now in business class on his fourth. I don't know what he drinks.
Fourth, yes.
Yeah. But he's probably thinking, oh yeah, I'm actually all right at this racing job. I'll be okay this weekend.
Yeah, and he's got a 110-point margin to overcome to be in the lead of the championship. So it is the two Erebus cars leading, Brody from Will, then Brock from Van Gisbergen. Then we have the first of the Fords in Chaz Mostert. We haven't really talked about Walkinshaw at all today, because there just hasn't been anything to talk about besides them being bad.
Well, Mostert being average and Nick Percat putting himself out of a driver's seat.
Yeah, pretty much. It's been kind of depressing with what's going on at Walkinshaw. But I will say that while both of their qualifying pace has been absolutely dire, they have been at least not shit in racing. Like, I think Mostert came up, 14 places or something in the first race in Valley?
Something like that. But the fact you got to come up 14 places, it's not a good sign for your team that's usually used to running in the top echelons of the sport.
Yeah, in the top 14 on the grid, at least. So, yeah, not ideal, not the ideal way that they want to be running at the moment. So, Townsville was this weekend. So, make sure you're watching the bright, sunny sunshine and hopefully not feeling as cold as we are on this side of the continent, because, god damn it, the temperature hasn't gotten over 13 for the past week, and I hate it.
I know those feels. I've had the heater on the apartment all week, but still, going outside's a challenge.
I've been wearing friggin' 3 layers and a beanie, and I never wear beanies. And this is just... we're getting off topic. Sports, right? Where do we start with all of the sport that is happening in the entirety of the world right now? Do we want to start with the cricket?
Well, yeah. Let's talk about the cricket, because it's the holy grail of Test series right now, and my God, has it been interesting.
Yes, so let's talk about the cricket. We're talking about, of course, the Ashes, and this has been probably one of the biggest built-up Ashes series in England for a long time, probably since 2005. And people have been talking a lot about the 2005 Ashes in the last 2 weeks, because there's been quite a few things that have been going on that make this series so far akin to the 2005 series. But let's give a little bit of context. We have talked in brief patches so far this year about this whole concept of English cricket and the idea of Bazball, which is kind of a stupid name, but it'll make sense in a second. The idea for the England team at the moment that the best way to play is to play carefree, is to attack everything, is to not worry about the consequences, is to go hard at everything. And to be fair, it has come off for them in a lot of situations. They won 11 of the last 13 test matches. One of the ones that they've lost, we detailed quite vigorously, quite extensively. Thank you. Thank you, me. Quite extensively, which was the 1-run victory that New Zealand got in that place that I've forgotten the name of. You'll probably remember.
New Zealand.
I mean, I know that much. But
Aotearoa?
Yeah, that one. See, I knew it was a weird name. So, they have been being entertaining, being amazing, being wonderful, and going about it with a smile on their face, and, everyone having a laugh in the meantime. There has been many questions over whether or not that strategy would work against the bowling lineup and the oppressive patience and skill of Australia, who arguably have sent their best team over to England this century. So that has been kind of the sort of ground of the series on the way in. It was, can this carefree, explosive, attacking, fun, entertaining brand of cricket that England are trying to promote hold up against the current best in the world, the best bowling lineup, the best batting lineup, the best keeping, the best team cohesion? Can this hold up?
World Test champions.
And the World Test champions, yes, that also happened in the month of June. But, we were always going to win that. We were impossible to beat. So that's kind of the lead into the series. On one side you have, Australia. The other side you have England. And, England in a very weird and interesting position. A very young team with very high strike rates and kind of mid-averages on the batting side. And then also, the oldest, most prolific pair of bowlers, fast bowlers in the country, or in the world rather, in cricket history, in Jimmy Anderson and Stuart Broad. But things kind of already took a turn for the worse before the series even started. So, firstly, England go into the series without a frontline spinner. Jack Leach, who has been the spinner for England for the past few years, discovers stress fractures in his back and he's out for the season. So that kind of puts a thorn in England's side to start with, and they have to call up, out of retirement from 2 years, Moeen Ali, who the last time he played Australia, he got bashed around the park with both bat and ball and, retired from Test cricket because of it. And then on top of that as well, they've gone to, we've just heard now, Chris, that Ollie Pope, one of the batsmen, has dislocated his shoulder and is now out for the rest of the series with surgery. Heading into the series, a lot of people made a lot of conjecture and a lot of thoughts and a lot of bets and all that sort of thing. Glenn McGrath made his classic 5-0 speech, saying Australia. A lot of pundits said England were going to win. A few people with brains said Australia were going to win. What were your thoughts heading into the series?
I was picking 3-1 Australia.
Yeah?
Initially. I did have reservations when I saw the lineup England picked. And I'll talk about those separately, but the series has gone pretty much the way I thought it was going to go. England's biggest problem at the moment...
We'll just quickly say, we are already 2 tests in at the time of recording. We've already had the first 2 tests, so we're already partway through the series. So with that in context in mind, do you want to talk about the first test?
So first test, to remind me, was
Edgbaston.
Edgbaston. Relatively comfortable in the end for Australia. Kind of. But England's biggest problem, and this is the biggest problem with the second test as well, they needed to take 24 wickets a game to get the 20 batsmen out.
Yes.
Minimum.
Yes. So they're making chances but not taking chances.
Yes. And a lot of that is down to, I'm sorry to say, Johnny Bairstow.
Yes, I 100% agree. And we'll talk more about Johnny Bairstow in a few minutes. But for context, he's the keeper. He has been... I would say, Chris, and I think you'll agree with me, Johnny Bairstow is not the best wicketkeeper in England.
He's been the best wicketkeeper for his county side.
Yeah, so... England have chosen Johnny Bairstow because he fits the attacking positive mindset archetype in his batting more so than his skill as a keeper. The best keeper in England at the moment is probably Folkes, who was in the side when they came to Australia last time and got beaten 4.9-0, but hasn't really been a feature of the side because he is not an aggressive and outspoken and positive batsman. But if you look at Australia, who have Alex Carey, you would have to you could make a pretty good case, Chris, to say that the difference between Carey and Bairstow has been the difference between the two sides.
Yeah. And this is going to something that I've always maintained about Test cricket. Not necessarily short form, but you always pick your best keeper in Tests.
And why is that?
The amount of runs they score, okay, you might have a Gilchrist type who scores 60 a match, for example. But generally, what's Carey's average? Around 30 odd? So it's still handy.
Let's look that up. He's been quite a prolific run scorer himself since he fell on the pool in Karachi when they were in Pakistan like 2 years ago. But since then, he's been doing very well with the bat. He is definitely handy, but more than that, he's a great batsman.
Yeah.
Great keeper.
And this is my point. A great keeper is going to save you more with his glove work than he's ever going to score with the bat. In 9 cases out of 10.
Yeah, and we've seen that happen in the first two tests. Like in the first test, Johnny Bairstow missed the stumping from Cameron Green and dropped a catch from Alex Carey, and they're just the two that I can remember off the top of my head. Both of them in the first innings went on to make 50s. So that's
massive.
That's 80 runs that Bairstow himself has put down. On the flip side, Carey was able to manage to affect two very difficult stumpings. One from a swipe, like a missed swipe from Joe Root, and then another one down the leg side. He was able to affect them both without missing either of those chances, which are chances that have swung the match in Australia's favour.
Yeah, and that's before we get to whatever the hell Johnny Bairstow did in the second match.
What a spud.
But we'll get to that separately.
Yeah, we'll get to that separately.
But that first test, it also didn't help that they pulled out a really branded declaration in the first innings.
Well, I don't think it's actually that brain dead. I think the justification was solid. So for context, at the end of day one, with about 30 minutes left, Stokes, captain of the England side, declares at 391 for 8, with the justification of, I wanted to have a go at the Australian top order. Now, if they had taken a wicket or two in those 20 minutes that they had to bowl, that would have been like an absolute masterstroke. People would have been lauding it as like the best declaration that's ever happened. As it happened, because Warner and Khawaja effectively didn't come to the party, they were like, we're not going to play at anything, we're going to block it all out, and we're just going to get through to tomorrow. Because that happened, it kind of looks like a bit of a dud declaration. That's my thought.
But I think that also set Uzi up for his massive inning score. Gave him, a good few overs just to get out there and see the ball, basically.
Yes, and now this has been the key, the sort of really interesting thing about this test series so far. Usman Khawaja has been by far the best batsman of the series, aside from the freak innings from Ben Stokes at Lords. He has done that striking at, like, such a slow strike rate. So his first innings, he scored 141 off of 320 balls. So striking at 40 runs per 100 balls. In the second innings, again, striking at 33 runs per 100 balls, scored 65. Like, he's the complete antithesis in the level of patience that he has versus everything else that is Bazball.
Yeah, he's playing koala ball.
Exactly. And it's, you don't necessarily need all that explosiveness right at the top. Because, you've got Davey Warner there, and then you've got the two best bats in the world after him. And then you've got Travis Head, who can come in and strike at 100 if you want. So, Australia kind of has all those bases covered.
Yeah. Although Lavishane's had a bit of a mare.
That's true. Labuschagne has had a bit of a mare. So, just to wrap up on Edgbaston, it was actually quite a well-fought test match in the end. As we may mention, England made 293 for 8 in the first day. Australia came out and batted and scored 386. So, only 7 runs behind, and that was with a late innings collapse as well. England then came out and set 273, which meant that Australia had to score 281 to win the game. Now, 281 and Edgbaston is kind of a touchy subject to Australians, for those who remember the 2005 series. I believe the target in 2005 was 282, and that was really the tipping point in the 2005 Ashes series. England ended up winning that game by 2 runs after a late innings partnership between Brett Lee and Michael Kasparits failed at the very, very end of the day. So it was great that Australia managed to get over the line. That felt really, really good. But
by 2 wickets, a little bit of synchronicity there.
Yeah, just a smidge, but it was really, really down to a captain's knock from Pat Cummins to get Australia over the line after Alex Carey and Usman Khawaja had gotten out late on in the piece. So very tight test match there to start things off. The media coverage of that game, though, especially in the aftermath, was kind of confusing. It very much made it feel like England had won the game, despite the fact that they'd lost.
Well, yeah, they were talking about how Bazball was working and it's an exciting test and that's what we want to see. And
but
no.
Like it kind of glossed over the fact that Australia had played well and played themselves out of a little bit of a hole by doing something very, very well and doing something that was a bit surprising. You know, not very often do you see the last, or the 8th wicket put on 60 runs to win a match, for example. But, if you'd read the press coverage afterwards, you would have thought that England would have had won that test match, but they absolutely didn't. And it was kind of surprising to me how much the coverage was geeing up the English side as if it was, a great thing that they'd gotten that close.
But that's the English tabloid media in a nutshell. They're quick to praise and quick to turn on you.
Well, let's get to Lords, because I think we're in the second phase of that at the moment. So the Lords test match... Go ahead, sorry.
Lords had absolutely everything.
Well, this is the thing. It didn't start with absolutely everything. It started off very slow and very sort of... Well, actually, no, that's a lie. It started off with a protest for the Just Stop Oil, which was, something, a very serious issue.
It was hilarious.
I mean, it was hilarious. They had people running onto the pitch with orange powdered paint and trying to throw it on the pitch, and they ended up getting carted off by Johnny Bairstow, the keeper, who literally held a guy under his arm and dragged him off the pitch. Which was...
the most secure his hands have been all series.
Yeah, well, the only time of English dominance the entire day, because basically that first day, it was a very green wicket, overcast skies. England put Australia into bat and got nothing out of it. Australia ended up putting on 416 on the first innings off the back of a Steve Smith century, which is good to see. But
it's really emotional century as well.
Yeah, really, really, really good to see him back in the runs and back doing so well.
Yeah, especially seeing it's probably the last time he's going to play at Lords.
Yeah.
And to get his name on that honour board yet again, and for a cricket nuffy like him, means absolutely everything.
It does. And Lords is, of course, the home of cricket, which will be important later. So following up, England were doing quite well. They were 180 odd for one on a pitch that was offering nothing, and then completely fell apart and were all out for 325. So that gave Australia a 100 and something run lead heading into the second innings.
Yeah, they imploded harder than anything else that happened.
Well, and this is as well with Australia losing Nathan Lyon, which is their frontline spinner, who got 3 wickets in the last innings of the Edgbaston Test with a calf injury, quite serious calf injury. So Lyon's actually out for the rest of the series now.
Yeah, but Travis Head came on and took 2 wickets that innings.
Because who needs Nathan Lyon when you've got Travis Head? Heading into the second innings, Australia once again do their thing. They plod along. So the run rate for the Australians was 2.7, and something very interesting happened. England played negatively. They played the most boring, negative, effectively bodyline sort of a series. And bodyline is a word that any cricket fan will it will instantly prick up their ears. They'll go, "Oh, what bodyline? How is that even allowed?" They basically just bowled bounces and bounces and bounces, trying to get into the shoulders, into the helmets, and it was boring to watch. It was boring to think about, and it just sucked. It was just a very negative, cowardly tactic.
And if I may say so, terrible umpiring.
Yes. Now, explain
Because
why.
there comes a point, that, firstly, 2 bounces and over. That wasn't being enforced. And secondly, and this is from my umpire training I did with Paul Rifle.
You did umpire training with Paul Rifle?
Why am I umpired a couple of seconds?
Why am I only learning about this now?
I know, right? Crazy.
What?
Bob Perry, Paul Rifle.
Sorry, continue.
Yeah. Yes. So, after a while, it can become pretty intimidatory bowling if you're just doing it constantly. And yes, okay, they're professionals and they're elites of the game, so it's not intimidatory as such, but it can get dangerous.
Yeah.
The umpires really trying to put a stop to that and saying, hey, you get your 2 and over, that's it.
Yeah, I think it wasn't really enforced at all. And the thing that stood out to me in the middle session of day 4, when England were trying their absolute best to A, stop Australia scoring runs and B, get wickets, they bowled 98% of deliveries in a region that is defined as short. So a region that is over 10 metres from the batsman's stumps. Which is ridiculous. That is absurd. That is incredibly... It's just so negative.
It's like they watched Neil Wagner, or, Brendan McCullum said, this is what Neil Wagner did for us, you do it now. And all of them did it.
Yeah, it was absurd. I don't think I've ever seen anything like it. And, the bouncer is a delivery that is very powerful and gets a lot of wickets because of its surprise factor. It doesn't really work if that's all you're bowling.
Exactly. If you're bowling bounces like 2 or 3 and over, then you usually follow up with a Yorker or something just on 4th stump.
But they didn't do any of that.
No, it's just ridiculous. And they got their just desserts for it because Australia was just like, yeah, whatever. We don't need to win this game.
Well, I mean, it did end up falling that way in the end because Australia did end up getting out to it. They did score, only 273 with, a top score of Khawaja at the very top of the innings. But even then, he eventually succumbed to the short ball barrage. They all will eventually succumb to the short ball barrage. And I'll pose the question to you, Chris. When you've got good swing and seam bowlers like Jimmy Anderson, Stuart Broad, and Ollie Robinson in your lineup. I know. I don't know why Root's name came into my head. I think I was just looking at it. Why on earth are you resorting to this tactic?
Because the pitch was giving you nothing.
Why on earth was the pitch giving them nothing?
Because they prepared them for bad ball.
Because they asked for it.
Yeah. And surprise, surprise, you've taken out what makes English cricket actually good.
And that's bowling in English conditions.
I think we saw the first day of Edgbaston, we saw the ball move a bit, but since then it's been pretty much nothing. The only movement you got at Lords was from the slope.
Well, a little bit of that, but also the new ball seemed to move. I think Stark's wicket of Ollie Pope, where he completely bowled him all ends up with an in-swinging Yorker, was love that. But that was a genuinely swinging ball. So do we talk?
But that's a dude.
I mean, that's true. So do we talk about the final day now?
Oh, the final day. The day that basically broke everyone in the office because they turned the TV on at 8 o'clock and couldn't turn it off again.
This is true. I was a very tired boy on Monday because of it. So England start the day 114 for 4. So they've already lost the 4 wickets. The target is 371 or survive. There was also a little bit of controversy at the very end of the day 4 evening. Mitchell Starc took a catch which wasn't a catch because he put the ball on the ground, and I think everyone, once they figured out what it was for, was like, oh, okay, yeah, we can see why that is.
Yeah, unless you're a diehard Australian one-eyed fan, yes, you knew that was not out.
Yeah, exactly. Short ball barrage from Australia as well, but they do it a little bit better. Duckett ends up edging one behind to Alex Carey, who takes a good catch. Johnny Bairstow comes in, and something stupid happens. So, at the end of an over of Cam Green bowling, Green bowls a bouncer, Johnny Bairstow ducks underneath it, wanders out of his crease, and the stumps get thrown down. So, the stumps have been broken, Johnny Bairstow's out of his crease, the ball was not dead, and he's out. He's out stumped.
Initially he was giving out run out.
Yeah, but seeing as he was out of his crease, not in the act of making a run, he got changed to stumped. Now, Chris, before we go any further, is that out?
Yes.
So why are people talking about this still?
Because spirit of cricket. The phrase I hate most from this game.
Okay, so let's break this down. Why has this become such a controversial piece of the game over the week? What about this dismissal has incised? That's not that. Is that the word that I want?
Enraged?
Enraged, I guess, but it's not really I mean, I guess there's a bit of rage. What about this has pissed people off?
Well, for one, you're going against the spirit of cricket doctrine, inverted commas, at the home of cricket, with the MCC who make the rules of cricket and the spirit of cricket guidelines. Again, inverted commas on that. And a pivotal moment of the match. If Johnny Bairstow had hung around for another 40, 50 runs, the result could have been completely different.
Okay, it could have been, sure. But every single cricketer, from have-a-go cricket to grade cricket to Big Bash to Test cricket, knows that you stay in your crease until the ball is actually dead.
Yes.
And Bairstow knows this himself. He is a wicketkeeper. He tried to do exactly the same thing to Marnus Labuschagne in the first test. Exactly the same thing. And so there's a bit of hypocrisy there, but that's okay. The spirit of cricket only matters when it goes against England. If it's not against England, they don't care. There was an interesting bit of analysis from Mark Taylor and Michael Atherton, who are the two former captains of the respective side, who were on commentary at the point of time. Taylor very quickly noticed that he went back and had a look and noticed that Bairstow did exactly the same routine in the previous 4 balls of that over. So after every single ball, he scratched behind the crease and walked out of his crease. Now, that is all well and fine as long as the ball is dead. What Alex Carey did is, as soon as he received the ball from the bouncer as the wicketkeeper, he threw it back at the stumps. So at no point was there a moment where the ball was dead. Alex Carey has not waited for Bairstow to get out of his crease. He has not tried to bait Bairstow out of his crease. He has not done anything untoward that has affected what Bairstow has done. He got the ball and he threw the ball. And there was no time in between.
And if you read the laws of cricket around this, the ball is considered dead when it's finally at rest in the keeper's hands or in the hands of a fielder, or when both sides consider it dead. Neither of those conditions were met.
And so Bairstow's out.
Yeah, Bairstow's out.
Yeah.
And it's a completely fair enough dismissal, and Bairstow is a friggin' idiot.
Exactly. Now, Chris, what was the crowd's response to Bairstow being a complete freaking idiot? Don't you just love English crowds?
Some of the most pro-cool one-eyed dickheads you're ever going to meet.
Okay, so let's address a little bit of the fallout. So, of course, Bairstow's given out. He glares at everyone on the way off. Crowd starts chanting, same old Australians always cheating, or something along those lines. When the two teams go off for lunch, now at Lord's is kind of special. To get into the pavilion, you have to walk through what's called the long room. So members are allowed to be in the long room, so you're actually walking into the room with the members, who will then part and allow you to get to the rooms. The amount of abuse the Australian team got from the members, who should be, quite well mannered, because it's quite expensive to be a member at Lord's, and as, guardians of the game, or whatever they want to call themselves, as, the uptight knob stockings that they are, they're very uptight about the way that they do things. They're being booed, people are yelling cheat, and, even there's a few other things that have been said that haven't been revealed that obviously incite the Australians quite a lot, because Usman Khawaja came to a stop and told security, that one right there, get rid of him. And a few members got their membership suspended for being assholes. So
I think it's worse than that.
I mean, yeah, it should be. So quite a high temper moment in the game. And then we had some magic from Ben Stokes.
Ben Stokes, he decided, right, this has happened. Screw the lot of you.
Yeah.
Was it 3 sixes in an over? They really started it off?
Well, yeah, it was 2 Cameron Green overs in a row. One of them went for 24, the other one went for 28. One of them had 3 sixes in a row, which brought up Stokes' century. And then it just kind of got a little out of hand. So for those who aren't aware, Ben Stokes is the captain of the English team, and has been known for making things happen, which is
happen.
Yeah, making the impossible happen, making sporting miracles happen. And both you, Chris, and I have been on the receiving ends of many a Stokes miracle. 2 in the same summer. One which was at Lord's, the World Cup final, wherein he basically dragged England out from an unwinnable position into a winning position by the barest of margins, and I'm sorry for saying that. And the other one was...
I'm going to kick you out.
Huh?
I'm going to kick you out of this chat for that.
I am sorry. And the other one was at Headingley in 2019, where in a similar situation, chasing on the fourth innings, Stokes went beast mode and managed to win a test match from absolutely nowhere. And for a while there, a few Australians were quite nervous, me maybe included. I can neither confirm nor deny that Stokes would take it away again. But in the end, some better bowling and some better tactics meant that Stokes hold out to Alex Carey with the wicket-keeping gloves, and from there it was a formality. It was a crazy 2 hours of cricket in an otherwise procedural innings, effectively.
Yeah. But that's the beauty of Test cricket.
Absolutely.
It's like a Le Mans 24 where all the P1s die apart from one. The unexpected can happen.
Yeah, and then it might only be the unexpected for an hour or so, and then everything goes back to normal. And that's pretty much what happened, Australia very quickly mopped up the tail in 9 overs after Stokes got out, and it was, a well-fought test victory. But the fallout has been very much focused on this stupid moment involving Johnny Bairstow and Alex Carey. And you know what, Chris? I think this has masked, really, the fact that England had no answers.
Yes, it's really been a deflectionary tactic for more than anything.
Yeah.
The fact that Brendan McCullum is stoking a lot of the flames as well is not being well received.
I bet. I've done a bit of digging into Brendan McCullum and his words and his personality since then, since all the comments that he said, and turns out Brendan McCullum's a bit of a dick. I didn't know that.
Yeah, he went through a bit of a "O come all ye faithful, I'm a changed man," but he was an absolute arsehole on and off the track, and still was a bit of an arsehole off track.
So Brendan McCullum is a Kiwi sporting icon, actually, to be fair, and is now coaching the England team, which is where this whole Bazball idea comes from, the idea of playing carefree. But clearly they do care quite a bit, because otherwise they wouldn't be kicking up such a stink after being 2-0 down in a home Ashes series, which they've been trying to say has been their best chance of winning the Ashes for, a decade. It, to me, Chris, kind of speaks to the fact that England just have a very quickly run out of ideas and are looking to blame anything and anyone but themselves. Because, let's be real, They asked for flat pitches, they got flat pitches, they haven't been able to use the flat pitches, their batting has been dire, they've not been in control of the game at any real points, and despite Australia losing the toss, having the hardest of the batting conditions, and losing their frontline spinner, at no point was Australia behind the game.
No, not at all. I just don't get, Australia is not the only one who's fallen into this trap. Oh, sorry, England's not the only team that's fallen into the trap of preparing pitches that actually work to Australia's advantage as well. We've seen it. Australian teams have struggled a bit with the moving ball. So why not prepare a pitch where the ball moves?
Exactly. It has been
like a normal English pitch.
Exactly. Like, you only have to look to the last Ashes series to see at times Australia fall apart when the ball was moving. You look back to 2017 or whatever it was when we were last in England, and Stuart Broad got 8 wickets for 15 runs in one morning because the ball was moving sideways. Like, it's not rocket science. It's just like, do what you're good at.
Especially when your bowlers are, your two frontline bowlers are in their 70s.
Exactly.
And they're still bloody good at moving the ball, and you've got a new bowler in the Josh Tongue who's licking the opposition.
Nice.
I'm impressed with how he's going. Actually, I like him.
Well, he seemed to be the only one in that entire English team in the first 3 days that actually cared about being out there.
Yeah. It's a bit of weird action, but God, I do like the cut of his jib.
Well, he does offer something different. And now, something that a lot of people have been saying about the English team is that their bowlers are all very samey. I mean, you've got Jimmy Anderson, who's a 120-ish kilometre per hour outswinging bowler. And you've got Stuart Broad, who's a 120 kilometre per hour-ish outswinging bowler. You've got Ollie Robinson, who's a 120 kilometre per hour-ish outswinging bowler. And you've got Josh Tongue, who does something a little bit different. He's a bit more bowls, as the Australians would say, bowls a heavy ball. But like, their attack is extremely samey, and on flat pitches that aren't doing much, it's just kind of, no wonder they bounced everyone for 2 hours in the middle. Like, what else were they going to do? They were just going to get scored to all corners of the ground, apart from that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, wrapping up on the Ashes, we have 3 more test matches left. One of them starts on Thursday, at Headingley, which is notorious for having a very actively involved crowd.
Mm-hmm. Just what we need after the Lords.
No, exactly. After that, the Ashes go to Manchester, Old Trafford, and then back to London at the Oval.
Yep.
2-0 Australia. What happens now?
Well, I can see Leeds being pretty heavily weather affected, unfortunately. The forecast did not look great.
Keeping in mind, by the way, England need to win all 3 test matches to win the series.
Yes. I can't see that happening. I definitely can't. I can see them winning 1. Maybe drawing one and winning 1, but winning 3, no.
So what you're saying is your 3-1 prediction's pretty on point?
At the moment, absolutely.
Yeah, I don't think I can see this England team winning a test match. Not the way that they're playing, not the pitches that they've got.
I can see them winning the 5th one when Australia don't care as much.
Yeah, I can only see them winning a dead rubber. And the reason is that they've entirely run out of ideas. If their plan A is aggression and vibes, and that hasn't worked for 2 test matches, and like some of the cricket in the second test match was absolutely dire. Like, the middle session of just bowling bouncers was the most boring session of cricket I've ever watched, and I've watched Faf du Plessis block an entire day of cricket, block 340 consecutive deliveries to save a test match at Adelaide Oval in person. And that was more interesting than watching cricket, than watching England bowl bouncers, 120 kilometre per hour bouncers for 2 hours. If that's the strategy that they can come up with, if this is that playing positively and, entertaining, saving test match cricket, then they've got no chance.
Exactly. But having said that, if they weren't playing this style, I reckon they probably would have lost each game by close to an innings.
Yeah, fair. Is that the state of English cricket, you reckon?
I think so.
Gosh, don't let the English hear you say that. They might, I don't know, yell that you're a cheat until they're red on the face.
Yeah. I've been to their country. I've seen their fans at a Southampton game. That's fine.
Oh, yeah. Well, I have to ask you about that because that's something that we should probably make mention of as well. By the way, if you want to know more, if you want to follow along more with the story of everything that happened during these test matches, there is a particular writer on ESPN Cricinfo who I think has done a really, really good job in telling the story of the theatre of the test as opposed to just reporting on what's happened. The guy is called Vithushan Ihantharaja, I think. They've written, like, as I said, articles on the theatre of what's happening, not just a report on this is what's happened. That gives a really, really good idea of how the game shaped out and how the game felt after each day. And if you are a cricket nuffy like us too, I reckon you'll get a lot out of it. So ESPN Cricket Info, look for him. Vish E on Twitter as well. So yeah, have a look.
Do.
Because Chris is going to go read his articles afterwards as well.
Absolutely, if I don't want to sleep.
Yeah. A few things to finish up on the Ashes before we talk about other cricket. Nathan Lyon out for the series, torn calf muscle. Todd Murphy comes in. Do we feel confident about Todd Murphy?
Yeah, he's fine.
He's fine? Cool.
He's young, but he's another leg spinner, young leg spinner. He'll be fine.
Ollie Pope out. I'm not sure who... Pardon me, not sure who comes in to replace him, but that's a blow for England, is it?
What I would do, bring in Folks, keep Bairstow.
So move Bairstow up and bring in Folks as a wicketkeeper?
Yep.
I see you've been reading a lot of comments on r/cricket. I read that exact same comment earlier today.
Well, it's the most logical thing. You got someone who's at least match hardened.
Yeah, exactly. What about Australia's bowling lineup? They have the luxury of 3 fast bowlers who have more than 200 test wickets, and then also Scott Boland and also Michael Neser. Who do we see bowling back in the series? Do we see Neser get a shot? What goes on there?
I think this test you see maybe Boland come back, because I don't necessarily think Neser's going to play too much at the moment.
Yeah,
he'll probably play a couple of the matches later on, but yeah, I think he maybe bring Boland back in and rest. Who hasn't rested yet?
Well, Cummins and Hazelwood.
Well, you can't rest Cummins, so maybe Hazelwood sits out for a game.
I kind of prefer that. I like having Stark in the team because he's a bit of an X factor. He might go for runs, but also he might just snag wickets. And when he gets on song, he gets on song.
Yeah, it's the same thing with Boland. So bring Boland in, give Hazelwood a well-earned rest, and maybe last couple of games you bring Neser in if Australia's already won it.
Yeah, okie dokie. So yeah, next test starts on Thursday. So everyone get your eyes on that, and because I'm sure it's going to be full of a lot.
It's going to be full of everything.
Full of everything. It's not just the men's Ashes that's happening at the moment. It's also the women's Ashes happening at the moment. Similar sort of deal. Australia have been the team in women's cricket for the past 6 years or so. They've won the Cricket World Cup. They won the T20 World Cup. They won Commonwealth Games. They won the Cricket World Cup again. And they are in the process of already defending their Ashes title. Hasn't all gone smoothly for the Aussies. Meg Lanning, the captain, was ruled out of the series with a mystery illness. With an illness that has not been revealed to the public. So whatever that is for Meg, we hope that it goes well and that she's back on her feet and back in the team as soon as she can be. That's left the captaincy with Alyssa Healy, who's done very well considering that she's gotten broken fingers in both of her hands as a wicketkeeper, which she didn't tell anyone until after the test match, so good on her. Both on the flip side, England have come in with quite a young bowling lineup. They've had 2 of their elder statesmen in Catherine Sciver-Brunt and Anya Shrubsole retire. And so they've come in with brand new bowlers in the form of Lauren Filer and I can't remember her first name, but her last name is Bell, and she's been doing very well. Lauren Bell.
2 Laurens.
I thought it was, but I didn't want to because that sounded wrong. Anyway, so the game plan is Australia's experience versus England's sort of flair and youth. And so far, it has been Australia's experience that has done the business. We had the test match already. Australia didn't dominate the test match, but
it actually kind of went very similar to the men's first test.
Yeah, it was really quite intriguing because I at no point did any team feel ahead until the very end of the last day.
Yeah. Australia's innings was really helped out with a 99 to Elise Perry to start with.
She is a gun.
Shame.
She deserves to play more Test cricket.
She deserves to play in the men's side sometimes, I reckon.
Oh, she might not get a game for Australia. She might get a game for the English team.
That wasn't the most incredible innings of that most incredible innings of that first innings. Annabelle Sutherland,
right?
137, coming in at 8, batting with a tail, and then at the end just going completely ham.
And she telegraphed it too. She scored a century in the warm-up game to save the warm-up game against England A, who scored a ludicrous amount of runs, and it kind of it was a poor showing from the Australian bowlers in that regard. But yeah, she telegraphed exactly what was happening, and like, good on her for converting that into a Test match century. Like, goddamn.
Yeah. And then England come out, and Tammy Beaumont opening bats the whole innings, 208.
Which is I think it's the 8th highest score by a woman in Test matches ever. What a go. And again, backing up straight off of the practice game, she scored an unbeaten 200 not out against Australia A in the warm-up game. So again, doing it on form and doing really, really well. Yeah.
So the first innings was actually very close. Australia 473, England 463. So then the Australians come out in the second innings, Beth Mooney 85, Phoebe Litchfield 46. But then the English bowlers started coming back. So Sophie Epkerson took 5. Kate Crosswood chipping with a couple as well as Lauren Filler. And they dismissed Australia for 257, which, not a bad third inning score.
Yeah, and
England 258 to win.
That was really helped out by Alyssa Healy setting a 50 late in the innings, just to really just give the bowlers something to defend. But a really good platform at the top of the innings by the top 3.
And she really gave a wicket away too. Which is a low full toss she just sort of chipped up.
But she'd already made 50 at that point, and it was like the 9th wicket, so it was basically innings over anyway. But on the final day of the Test match, Ash Gardner woke up and chose violence.
Yeah.
Because
8 for 66.
How many times have you seen 8 for in a Test innings?
Not often. How many times have you seen Ash Gardner just dominate?
Well, it's kind of scary because she can do this. And, full disclosure, I have been somewhat critical of Ash Gardner's cricket since the Big Bash series where she did nothing, where she got 6 ducks out of 8 innings and took 5 wickets for the whole series. I've been kind of questioning Ash's place in that team since then. But she can do stuff like this. She can turn a game on its head by just being she's just got that X factor. I don't know what it is. Every now and then something just happens and clicks, and she will just destroy a team. And it wasn't like any of the shots that the English women were playing were bad shots. They were just completely undone by what Ash was throwing down at them. It was terrifying. Really terrifying.
Yeah. The only one that was really given away was Nat Scover-Brunt, who basically went for a horrible one-legged, one-knee pull and just got done.
And that was really disappointing because Nat Scover-Brunt, she's one of the best batsmen in England, and she has been the thorn in Australia's side forever. I think in the World Cup that was in New Zealand 2 years ago, or was it last year? In New Zealand last year, Scover-Brunt scored a unbeaten century in the group stage game and an unbeaten century in the final. But it was just a bit of a brain fade from her. And it kind of started the slide for England, who lost their last 8 wickets for just on 100 runs. What a day.
So yeah, and so with the women's Ashes as well, we should mention it's a mixed format series. So there's T20s, one days, and a Test match. Test match worth 6 points.
So no, not anymore. They've actually changed it.
Sorry,
So the Test match is only worth 4 points.
Sorry, 4 points. You're right. Yes,
because they didn't want the Test match to basically decide the series. But yeah, you know, like it's basically already decided the series. Yeah. Yeah, so since then, we've already had one of the first T20s, or the first of the T20s as well, which Australia won off the back of Beth Mooney doing Beth Mooney things. Really, it should have been quite a cruise for Australia, but what happened was they kind of let England get away in the very last over. They let Amy Jones get to 40 off of 21 balls, which, you know, turned the target from 130 to 150. And then they needed, like, 5 runs from the last over, and then just like got out twice and had to score a boundary on the second to last ball in order to really seal it. So, whoops. But hey, still got the points.
Which means 6 points with 4 matches left to go.
5. Two T20s, 3 one-days.
Yep. So basically, another win now puts Australia onto 8 points with 8 more points. So that's going to be enough for them to hold the Ashes.
Yeah. Yeah, so Australia in a very good position. And, like, I will say that despite Australia being in a very good position and looking like they're still going to be the dominant team, England have closed the gap. And there's no denying that. You know, England is still a very young team. A lot of new faces, particularly in the bowling lineup, to get blooded in. Whereas Australia, even though they have a few new faces, those new faces have been around the Australian setup for a long time. So Phoebe Litchfield has come in as an opener for Australia, and she has been a name that has been touted since at least 2019 or 2018. But she is only 20. Like, she's just turned 20 this year, and she's come in and has absolutely bossed it straight from the off. But she's been around the setup for like 5 years already as a 20-year-old. Which is kind of terrifying. Chris, what were you doing as a 20-year-old?
Nothing I can say on broadcast.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. Okay, so Women's Ashes next T20 is on Thursday morning Australian time at about 3 in the morning. So keep your eyes and ears out for that. Chris, it is already an hour and 20 minutes into this podcast. So we need to whiz through the next few things quick, smart. What is next on our agenda? And why is it more women's sport?
Women's World Cup of soccer being played in our neck of the woods.
What?
I know, right? So, yeah, Women's World Cup starts mid-July, July 20th, I think is the start date. I have to double-check that. But, yeah, being played in Australia and New Zealand. And not just a token, New Zealand can have a few games. Hosting 4 pools and games right up to the semis.
I think that's really, really cool. I think it's cool that they've done 4 pools in Australia, 4 pools in New Zealand. I probably would have liked another pool in Australia, just so that way we'd have a bit more of a few more games going on in the major cities. But I still think it's good that they've split it evenly across both countries.
The only weird thing about that is there's only 3 round of 16 games in New Zealand. So 2 teams who play all their pool games in New Zealand have to come to Sydney for a round of 16, then go back to New Zealand for a quarter-final. Which is a bit bizarre.
I mean, what can you do? When we had the Cricket World Cup in Australia and New Zealand, we had teams jumping across the ditch every second day. So,
I mean, it's not a onerous flight, that's for sure.
Exactly, yeah.
But yeah, this is also the first women's tournament to go 32 teams.
So mirroring the men's tournament at the moment, which I think is really, really good.
Oh, it's fantastic. Prize money's still an issue. They're still only getting a quarter of the men's prize money, but progress.
Yeah. Who do you reckon are the key teams in each group? Like, I don't really follow women's soccer, so I don't really know what's going on. I know that New Zealand are in Group A and Australia are in Group B. Who are the real teams that we should be looking at as teams to possibly win the win the tournament outright?
So yeah, Group A, New Zealand, Norway, Switzerland, and Philippines. Philippines, first time in the World Cup, coached by someone you might know, Alan Stajic.
Oh, I do know that name.
Yeah, former Australian women's coach.
Yes. Is that a good thing?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, good.
I mean, it's the Philippines. They aren't much good.
Okay, yeah, fair.
I think New Zealand are a sneaky chance of getting out of that pool.
Okay. Who would be the teams that you'd
Um,
say would probably be the team, like, the ones to get out of the pool?
Norway, Switzerland would be the two. Switzerland and New Zealand, I think, will be very similar. They're ranked pretty similarly as well. So that match on the 30th of July in Dunedin will be pivotal, I think.
Oh, good.
Group B, Group B has Australia, obviously, with the Republic of Ireland, Nigeria, Canada. Australia should get out of that pool, no problem. And then I think Nigeria might get one.
Ooh, that's pretty bold. That's a pretty interesting call there. Is the Nigerian women's soccer team that good?
No.
No?
But it's Ireland. It's Ireland's first time in the World Cup as well.
Okay. It's interesting to me that you say Australia should get through that quite cleanly. I know that the Matildas have been good in patches, but in the lead up to, like, in the qualification process for this tournament, which, you know, was immaterial to Australia because we're hosting, we did so poorly, like aggressively poorly. So I hope that has turned around.
Yeah. Of course, I'm saying this with Canada, they'll top the pool.
Okay, cool.
But I do think Australia should take care of Ireland and Nigeria.
Yep.
Pool C, Spain, Costa Rica, Zambia, Japan. Now, Spain are ranked 6th in the world, Japan 11th. So they should be your two. Zambia's 81st.
Okay, yeah.
And Costa Rica, you know, they're nowhere as well. So that's pretty simple. Group D is England, Haiti, Denmark, and China. Now, this pool D, I think, is a bit of a banana skin.
Okay.
China, was it China? Yes. You got England ranked 4th, China ranked 15th. Denmark, you know, Denmark are 18th, ranked 18th as well. So I can certainly see one of those three. You know, I can certainly see it coming down to those three. Haiti's going to be nowhere, but I can certainly make a case for one of Denmark or England not getting through.
Which would be quite a boil over. I mean, England particularly, especially with the growing strengths of the Women's Super League over in England, like, if they don't make it through the second, like, at least the quarterfinal, or the round of 16, they're going to be livid.
Yeah.
You know what would be great, though? Just a
E.
sidebar. You know what would be great? If at some point Australia and England play each other and Australia beats England again. That'd be great.
So Group E has two-time defending champions, the US, Vietnam, so that shouldn't be too difficult. But the other two teams, Netherlands and Portugal. The US side's just that good in the women's game. They should get through there, no problem. But Netherlands ranked 9, Portugal first time in the tournament, ranked 21 in the world. Netherlands should get the second spot there.
Yeah.
We're going to Group F now. France, Brazil, Jamaica, Panama. I think that's pretty easily France and Brazil.
Yeah.
Group G is Sweden, South Africa, Italy, and Argentina.
That looks like a terrifying group.
That is pretty nasty.
Because Sweden are number 2, they're in the top 5, aren't they?
Yeah, Sweden are one of the teams that will challenge USA for the title.
Yeah.
Italy made the quarterfinals in 2019. Argentina are Argentina.
Yep.
But their women's side's not fantastic. And South Africa, well, they're even less fantastic.
Okay.
So that should see Sweden and Italy get through. In Group H, Germany, South Korea, Colombia, Morocco. Germany, another team that should challenge for the title. South Korea, probably likely to make the second group there, take the second spot there.
Yeah. Okay. With that in mind, Chris, who do you reckon are going to be the top 4 teams in this competition?
But yeah, US, Germany, probably France, and just because it's being held in Australia, I reckon the Matildas may make the semis.
If you didn't say Australia, I was going to get mad at you. What about the likes of Sweden? Do you think Sweden will get through? Because I know Sweden to be a very strong team.
Yeah, so Sweden, if they get through their pool, if they get through their pool, I made notes, my phone just died.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So Sweden, if they get through, they're going to be pool. What pool do I say?
They're in Group G with South Africa, Italy, and Argentina.
Oh, yeah, that's right. So they will.
It's hard, isn't it?
It is hard. I think it comes down to who they're going to play in the quarters.
Yep.
If they run into the likes of Australia, it might be difficult. But if they run into, say, an Ireland, much easier.
Okay. On the note of the Women's World Cup in Australia and New Zealand, obviously this has been something that Australia have been pushing and New Zealand have been pushing for quite a long time to get a FIFA event down under. With the increased popularity of women's sport, the popularity of the Matildas and the growth of the women's game in Australia, couldn't be a better time for it, and that's been reflected in the ticket sales, hasn't it?
It has been. I had a bit of a play around with the games in Melbourne to see what was available, and there wasn't a lot. Okay, they've released more tickets now, so they're doing the old drip feed, trying to open up areas of the stadium as they need to. But you couldn't really get a ticket for any of the games in Melbourne. The opening games for Australia and New Zealand are basically sold out. They've had to move the Australia-Ireland game to Stadium Australia.
Which is pretty big.
Which is 80,000 seats.
Yeah.
Eden Park for New Zealand's first game is sold out. And the smaller games are being played, and especially in New Zealand, are being played at like 15,000, 16,000 seat stadiums. So they'll be close to full as well. And it's going to lead to a fantastic atmosphere and should lead to a great tournament. It's just a shame about some of the politics around it, but we won't get into that now.
Yeah. Politics in sport is hard.
Yes.
So the tournament starts, as you said, late July 20th, I think you said, and runs through to, I think, the 18th of August. So we'll probably have an update halfway through the group stage of where everything's going and where everything sort of sits. But I'm quite excited to actually get to watch some soccer in my time zone that's of a good quality in winter.
Yes, first game's actually going to be New Zealand-Norway from Auckland, and then we go to Australia-Ireland from Sydney on the 20th, so that's going to be a pretty cracking doubleheader to start.
Yeah, straight away, have the two host nations is always a good start.
So bring it on, I say.
Yeah, I'm excited for it. It'd be cool to have a full-scale FIFA event on this side of the world. Because the last FIFA event I can remember that happened in this time zone was like the 2002 World Cup, which was in Japan and Korea. And I was like 8. So I don't remember
also
watching it.
This is the first time a World Cup's been held across confederations as well, which is kind of cool.
So what do you mean across confederations?
So, AFC and OFC, Oceania and Asia.
Yeah, so because Australia is technically not in Oceania, except for the fact that it's physically in Oceania, but it just qualifies through Asia because we stopped. We didn't want to get beaten by Uruguay. Okay, that stopped being fun. You didn't want to get beaten by Uruguay, and you got sick of beating the Solomon Islands 75-0. Oh, that too. Yeah, got one of those days. Thank God. We actually get to play some. We get to play a bit more consistent in terms of the quality of teams that we're playing and all that sort of stuff. I think it's wonderful that women's sport is getting so well supported, and the women's Ashes as well. They were playing in front of like 20,000 people each day of the Test match, which is wonderful. We're going to see great crowds at the Women's World Cup. I'm quite enjoying the fact that we're seeing such a big spike in women's sport.
Me too. It's fantastic to see. Equal opportunity for all. It's great knowing that my daughter has a wider choice of stuff she can play when she gets older.
Oh, that's so gorgeous. Who's going to win?
You'd be foolish to back against the US.
Oh, that's so lame, though.
I know.
That's a good point.
I could be patriotic against New Zealand, but that's not going to happen.
Does New Zealand get out of the group, do you reckon?
Oh, yeah. I think they do.
Does New Zealand make it to the semis?
No.
Okay.
No. Round of 16 as far as I see them going.
Okay. So yeah, no, we'll keep you updated on that. We'll see. Yeah, we've got the first round of group games around the 20th, and I think will we have one group game completed or two group games completed before we do our next episode?
Possibly two.
Okay. So fingers crossed for that, and we'll hopefully have some good soccer to watch. I hope, or good football rather.
It depends how late we record, because some Group D, for example, finishes on the 1st of August.
Gosh. Okay. Yeah. So it'll be tight.
Yeah, and if you want to go along to China, England, High March Stadium, you can do that.
That's assuming that we are on time. And Chris, when have we ever been on time?
What's the clock?
Exactly. Okay, it's getting late, and we've still got more to talk about. What's next on our agenda? It's the Tour de France. It's the biggest single annual event, right? Gosh, this is going off the rails very quickly. I am excited for the Tour de France, and it's already started.
Yes, stage 4 happening right as we record this. So been allegedly roll into wherever they're going. But yeah, first 3 stages, from all accounts, because I haven't started up to watch too much of it so far, been quite entertaining.
It quite has
from
been.
the Basque Country.
Yeah. And like, as a commentator said, there's 2 flags that exist everywhere you go cycling, and that is the flag of Flanders, the Lion of Flanders, and the red and white and green flag of the Basque Country. And let me tell you, the fans were out in force, and like, I mean, like 5, 6, 7 deep across the whole course in the 2 stages in the Basque Country. Quite incredible. Quickly, just before we start, I want to explain, why do we care about the Tour de France? Well, if you've listened to our show for, any period of time, you know that we like sports that go for a long period of time. I mean, we're fans of endurance motorsports, for God's sake. Also, we spend far too long talking about Test cricket, and the Tour de France is just another sort of extension of that. To me, it's all about the stories in the stories, in the stories, in the stories that make up the bigger picture. It's about having the different competitions, the different little battles that make up all of these bigger pictures. So, for example, we have already seen a story in the King of the Mountains jersey, wherein one rider is basically trying to get as many points as he can so he can wear that jersey for as long as possible, and he's now been in the breakaway 3 days in a row just trying to get points for the King of the Mountains. And, like, it's a little funny, because every single climb, he's like bustling, hustling all the way up, takes the points at the top, and then just like completely backs off. Which is, exactly what you do when you're trying to hold on to a jersey, literally just to get more screen time for the sponsors. Like, that's why he's doing it. And just a bit of notoriety.
He's not going to be in contention when we hit the Cat 2 ones HCs.
No, not at all. As a bit of a preview, Chris, I thought I'd tell you about a few stages that I'd like to point out. A few stages that are going to be exciting throughout the race. Because there's 3 types of stages in the Tour de France, I think. So the first type of stage, which is the type of stage that we've got today, which is what's called a sprinter stage. So it's very flat, it's very long, and what we're expecting when we say it's a sprinter stage is that at the end of the day, we expect that the peloton will arrive at the finish in a bunch, and it will be one for the sprinters to win out of the bunch. So we had one of those yesterday, and it was won by Mats Pedersen from the De Koning Alpecin team, which was not a surprise to anyone, because he's probably the best sprinter going around at the moment. But that's kind of the first type of stage. The second type of stage is one I'd call for the puncheurs. One of the stages where you get a little bit of hills. It's likely that there will be a breakaway that forms that goes away at the front, and the team, the leaders, aren't really going to care too much, and it's going to be one for the breakaway and one for those who can really sort of punch and attack out of the breakaway. So those are the hilly sort of stages. So I reckon stage 17, the last stage, stage 20, the last competition stage, is going to be one of those stages. Because stage 20 on the, what day is it going to be? The 22nd has 6 climbs, finishing with a summit finish at 130 kilometers and that's going to be after 3 weeks of racing. So I reckon that one's going to be one of those stages. But the stages for me that I always like watching are the high mountain stages. Now, these are the ones where you have a lot of climbing and they go for a long time. And this is the sort of stages where the Tour de France gets decided. And the 2 that I really want to point out is stage 13, on the 14th of July, Bastille Day in France, which is a stage that goes up the Grand Colombier, which is one of the big climbs in the Tour de France. So that is a 17-kilometer climb at 7%. So that's the first real big mountain of the tour. And then the stage 17 from Mont Blanc to Courchevel goes up 4 climbs, including the Combe de Rosalind, which is 20 kilometers at 6%. Côte de Longfort, which is 6 kilometers at 7%, and then finishing up with the Col de la Loze, I think it is, which is 28 kilometers at 6%, which is the highest point in the tour. And after 170 Ks of racing, that is going to be, I think, where the Tour de France is going to be won and lost. So that's going to be the one that I'm going to keep an eye on, and that's the 19th of July. So yeah, stage 17. Mark that one in your books.
28 kilometers of climbing just sounds insane, doesn't it?
Dude, 28 kilometers of riding sounds insane to me. Despite being someone who's watched the Tour de France for almost 20 years, I'm not much of a bike rider.
Yeah, I guess the good thing about that stage, it comes after a rest day and a time trial, so it's not the worst lead into that absolute monster.
Well, the thing is, the time trials aren't rest days for the general classification riders. So the riders who want to win overall, they still need to be on for the time trial. Sure, it's a rest for the rest of the team, who can sort of take it a little bit easy. But for the riders who have serious ambitions of winning, they need to give it all for the time trial, and then they need to back it up the next day with 4 big mountains to go across. Like, I'm not really sure that's. I reckon one of the big names are gonna break on that day.
Most likely. I also like stage 15 as well. It's a bit of a brute. You've got a Cat 1 it's 170 Ks, 180 Ks. You've got a Cat 1 into a Cat 1, into a 3-2, and a Cat 1 finish.
Yeah, those sort of days are the ones that really, really hurt the legs when you're going up and down and up and down and up and down. You don't really get much of a break. 180 Ks on that day as well. That's a big day. And something that I found interesting, Chris, is that this year's tour doesn't really have a lot of the traditional high mountains that we've been used to seeing in past tours. So normally the tour route goes through the Alps and the Pyrenees, and you see mountains like Alpe d'Huez or the Col de Galimbier or the Col de Tourmalet. None of those are in this edition of the tour. They really are trying something different by giving a lot more of these smaller, punchier sort of climbs. And I'm not sure whether or not that's by design to try and change the front of the race, or if that's just something new that they're trying, that they just want to see how it works. But it's not something that we've really seen a lot.
I don't mind it. I mean, there is a bit of a history of them trying to mix it up a bit. I'm really interested to see how they go, because this race is going to undergo a lot of changes in the near future, particularly with its finishing, because if they won't be able to ride around the Champs-Élysées, that's going to be a massive turning point for them.
Yeah, I am kind of sad about that. I've always had a dream of going to France, to Paris, to see the finale of the Tour de France on the Champs-Élysées. So big sad on that one.
Yeah, but Christophe Prudhomme's really trying to do a few things for this stage, for this year.
Yeah, it's been
good to see.
It's interesting. It's interesting to see the sort of things that the organisers are trying to do, and whether or not that has a positive effect or a negative effect. On that note, though, I should talk about who the guys to watch are. For Australians, I reckon we've got a few overall hopes in the eyes of Jai Hindley, Jack Haig, and Ben O'Connor. I don't think any of them are serious chances at winning overall, but they might be in the top 5 or the top 10, which is still a great result at the Tour de France. A lot of the Australian attention is going to be on Caleb Ewan, the sprinter, who finished a 3rd in the stage yesterday. So he's a chance for winning a few stages. So keep an eye on him. But I think overall, it's going to be another battle between Tadej Pogacar and Jonas Vingegaard. And I reckon, based on form this year, it's got to be the Pog, man. He's what? I think he's raced 16 races and won 11 of them so far this season, which is ludicrous.
And also in his camp, he's with 3 stages in, he's already picked up 16 bonus seconds.
Yeah, and that's the thing, right? So it's it's not so much the fact that he's gone out and taken these bonus seconds, but it's the fact that he's had the ability to jump out of the pack and grab them. That's the thing that's been striking to me. So it's he's already looking, and it was the same when Cadel Evans won his Tour de France. Early on, he looked like he was the business, and it hasn't looked like Vingegaard is the business just yet. Vingegaard's probably got a stronger team in Jumbo-Visma, with the likes of Wout van Aert and, the powerhouses in that team to really drive it along. But, at the end of the day, it's the strength of the rider that matters, and I reckon Pogacar's just a bit better at the moment.
I'll go with that, and he's won the last 2 tours for a reason.
Yeah. Oh, well, Vingegaard won last year, so...
Yeah, true.
Yeah. But Chris... I love watching the Tour de France. It's something I look forward to each year. Do you get into the Tour all that much?
Oh, yeah. Before I had a kid, and I had, absolutely was getting into it.
So
I remember one year when SBS had their live chat on their tour tracker. That was great fun.
Yeah, that was brilliant. What is it about watching the Tour that you enjoy so much?
Firstly, it's the whole, why are they doing this to themselves?
Yeah.
But the scenery, the way it's presented, just the beauty of it. Like, I'm looking at pictures right now from today's stage, and there's not a lot going on in the peloton at the moment, but you're driving through some beautiful countryside, and it's just great viewing. And then when you get to the mountains and you see the fans behaving like absolute lunatics.
Yeah, it's
some shirtless guy I just saw there.
And
the devil every year.
Yeah, the devil every year. I was about to say that, and it's. I love the, as you said, the way it's presented. It's like watching almost a nature documentary, except it's guys on bikes. But something that I love is that it's like, as I said, it's like watching Test match cricket. It might not look like there's much happening, but oftentimes there's plenty happening. You just got to kind of find it. Like right now, just as we've started talking, there's been a change in direction of the way the race is heading, and that's meant that like 3 or 4 riders have attacked right at the front immediately because they've gone through a period of crosswinds, and it's strung out the peloton in this really big long line, and like it's just been like that. It's gone from nothing to all of a sudden very high intensity, and all of these little stories add up.
Move over Matt Keenan. It looks like we're doing live commentary now.
Yeah, exactly. But like already there's been...
What's cool this...
Go ahead.
I was going to say, what's cool this year is you're getting team commentary as well. Team radio.
Yeah, for the first time. That's something that we've been kind of used to when watching motorsport, but it's really interesting hearing how they do it in cycling as well. Because while cycling is scored as an individual sport, it's definitely a team sport.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, like... it's similar to the fact that, like, it's the one driver that gets all the plaudits for, the entire team and engineering doing all their jobs. It's, like, the one rider that crosses the line first that gets all the plaudits, but really it's all the other riders and the domestiques and the people in the team cup making the decisions that make it all happen. Yeah. It's beautiful. And as well, it's just good fun. It's nice to have something to watch every single night in the middle of goddamn winter.
Yeah. Especially when they have the 35 degrees days and you get a little jealous.
Ah, a little? Okay. We should probably clean it there. Tour de France goes for 3 weeks, so it'll be over by the time we come to our next episode. We'll probably talk about our favourite highlights and all that sort of stuff next episode. Chris, we've been talking for almost 2 hours. I know that there's plenty more we could talk about. Briefly mention a few things that are happening.
Okay, so Wimbledon's going on, just started today. Speaking of people wearing white and traditional stuff, the most traditional tennis tournament there is. First day was pretty heavily rain affected. Usual suspects should probably do well there. Kyrgios is out. Ha 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 ha.
Yeah.
What else is happening? Rugby union's coming up soon. We're into the Rugby Championship and Bledisloe Cup, the most one-sided rivalry in all of sport.
That hurts. You know why it's so one-sided? One-sided? Because New Zealand are good, sure, but Eden Park is a bloody hard place to go play rugby.
Yes, it is, especially in a 2-match series where you have to win both games. Good luck.
I hate it. I hate it so much.
There's a reason New Zealand's going for 22-0.
22-0. That's so sad. And like in that time as well, Australia has almost won a Rugby World Cup, and we still can't beat New Zealand in New Zealand.
Yeah. Rugby World Cup coming up this year, of course, so it's a bit shortened this championship, but we'll do a preview on that later.
And then we've got
other sport.
Yeah, go ahead.
What's happening?
There
you go.
FIH Hockey Pro League is on at the moment. European Tour. I think they've just finished up the Belgian leg, so it's been great actually watching some hockey. As opposed to playing some hockey, but that's been fun. Good to watch. And I think for the moment, that's it. But there's just so much, like between the cricket, the Tour de France, and the motorsport, and the motorsport, and the motorsport, and the motorsport, and the Wimbledon, the motorsport. There's just something on at all times, and it is just a wonderful time to be a sports fan, but an awful time if you like sleep.
Yeah. What sleep's overrated? I've got a kid. I don't get any sleep anyway.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. That's rough. Before we wrap up, Chris, how was your trip to Estonia, and how was playing soccer at St. Mary's?
Well, apart from the fact I'm useless and slow.
I mean, I could have told you that.
I got told the one good thing I did during the games was a throw-in.
Nice!
But no, the whole experience was wild. Watching the Southampton versus Liverpool game was actually a cracking game too.
Yeah.
Gave me an insight. Like, there was a 7-year-old, or like a 7-8-year-old who was in the box with us, who was a mad Liverpool supporter, and he was swearing at the players harder than some Australians do.
Wow, that's beautiful. That's the magic of sport right there.
Yeah, but no, it was actually a good chap. But no, absolutely wild experience. And then step on the field the following day. You know, I always wanted to play sport in a stadium.
And now you have.
Now I have. Wild experience. You had an experience of live sport recently as well, didn't you?
Oh, yeah, I went to the hockey.
Didn't you Yeah.
Yeah, it was actually a really, really good game, but I only figured that out after I'd already left, because really I just spent the entire time sitting on the hill talking shit with my teammates. We went as a big group of us who were playing in the same hockey club together. So it's the first time I'd ever been to an international hockey game, and it was really, really good. It was a really, really good game. Some great work on the penalty corners from both Australia and India, because it was Australia, the Hockeyroos versus India. And really enjoyed watching it, really enjoyed the experience, but yeah, only watched like 10 minutes of actual hockey and just spent the rest of the time shit talking. Whoops, sorry. But I mean, like, that's what you do when you're watching live sport up on the hill. That's what happens, right?
What we did in the VIP box.
Yeah, exactly.
We just shit talk and sank beers.
like the prophets foretold. On that note, I hope you've enjoyed listening to this rambling mess. As you can tell, we are very passionate about sports and we are very out of practice. It doesn't take long to get out of practice. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you very much for continuing to listen to Endurance Chat over the course of the year. It means a lot to us. Thank you very much, Chris.
Thanks, Michael.
And we'll see you next month for more From The Grandstand. In the meantime, we should have a Endurance Chat preview up for Monza and a wrap up the 24 Hours of the War. Stay tuned for that. And yeah, thank you very much for listening. Peace out!